The impossible discovery. The universe had rules. Every species knew them, lived by them, died by them. Rule number 1. Stay away from Class 15 worlds. They weren't planets. They were graveyards waiting to happen. The Ingenuity science vessel, Stellar Dawn, drifted at the edge of known space, its crew of 40 conducting routine deep space surveys. Captain Crickstar adjusted her 4 arms across the command console, her compound eyes reflecting the distant stars. The Ingenuity were explorers by nature, their insectoid forms perfectly adapted for zero-gravity environments. They had mapped more of the galaxy than any other species, but even they had limits. "Captain," Communications Officer Velnix chirped, antennae twitching with excitement. "We're detecting an artificial signature emerging from the Craven vortex." The bridge fell silent. Every crew member knew what the Craven vortex meant. It was the gravitational anomaly surrounding Deathworld KV-7, designated Class 15 by the Galactic Council. The planet's surface temperature ranged from -200 to +400 degrees in a single rotation. Its atmosphere contained 17 different acids, each capable of dissolving standard hull plating in minutes. The wildlife had evolved to be living weapons, from microscopic parasites that rewrote DNA to apex predators that hunted using dimensional phasing. No probe had ever returned data from KV-7. No ship had ever escaped its gravity well intact. It was so hostile that the Council had placed warning beacons around the entire system. "Confirm that reading," Crickstar ordered, her wings rustling with unease. "Confirmed, Captain. It's definitely artificial." "The signature matches. This can't be right." "What is it?" "It matches early human design patterns. Pre-extinction era. Humans." The name alone carried weight throughout the galaxy. Once considered a promising species, they had destroyed themselves through war and environmental collapse 2 centuries ago. Their homeworld was now a cautionary tale, their colonies abandoned ruins. Some said they had been too aggressive, too passionate, too unwilling to accept their place in the cosmic order. "Impossible," Crickstar muttered. "Humans have been extinct for." "Captain," the tactical officer's voice cut through her thoughts. "The object is on an intercept course. It's a ship, hiddily modified, but definitely human in origin." The view screen flickered to life, showing a vessel that defied conventional design. It looked less like a ship and more like a collection of scavenged parts, welded together by desperation. The hull was scarred with acid burns, covered in organic plates that seemed to have grown over the metal. Strange crystalline structures jutted from its surface at odd angles, pulsing with bioluminescent light. "Life signs?" Crickstar asked. "Multiple. They're changing. The readings don't make sense. The biology is in constant flux." A communication request blinked on the console. After a moment's hesitation, Crickstar accepted it. The screen filled with static before resolving into a face. It was human, or had been once. The features were recognizable but altered. The eyes held a strange luminescence, pupils that dilated and contracted independently. Scars traced patterns across skin that seemed to shift color with the light. When the figure smiled, the teeth were too sharp, too many. Well, the human said, voice carrying an odd harmonic that suggested modified vocal cords. "Visitors. Been a while since we've seen anyone out here. I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the... Well, we just call her the Survivor now." The original name seemed a bit too optimistic after everything. Crickstar struggled to maintain her composure. "This is Captain Crickstar of the Ingenuity vessel Stellar Dawn. We thought humans were extinct." Chen laughed, a sound that sent shivers through every crew member. "Extinct? No, not extinct. Just evolved. Adapted. Changed. When you live in hell, you either become the devil or you die. We chose the former. You came from KV-7. From the Craven Vortex Deathworld." "Deathworld." Chen tilted her head, the movement too fluid, too predatory. "That's what you call it. We just called it home." After a while, anyway. The first year was rough. Lost 80% of the colony ship's survivors. The second year, we lost our humanity. But by the third year, we'd found something better. The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances. Krikstar leaned forward. How many of you survived? Started with 12,000 when the colony ship crashed. Down to 37 now. But what we lack in numbers, we make up for it in other ways. We've learned things in that place. Things about survival, about adaptation, about what it really means to be human. We can offer you medical assistance, transportation tow. Medical assistance, Chen interrupted, her grin widening. For what? We've never been healthier. Every disease that whirled through at us, we absorbed. Every toxin, we metabolized. Every attack, we learned from. Do you know what happens when you throw humans into an environment that kills everything else? We don't just survive. We thrive. The survivor's ship moved closer, and the Stellar Dawn's sensors went wild. The hull wasn't just covered in organic matter, it was integrated with it. Living metal that could heal from damage. Biological systems that could adapt to any environment. Weapons that seemed to grow from the ship itself. Our scans show your ship is alive. Velnix reported, confusion evident in her voice. Everything on KV-7 is alive, Chen explained, and everything there tries to kill you. So we learn to make allies of our enemies. The ship isn't just transportation. She's a partner, a predator, a home. She earned her survival just like we did. Another human appeared on screen, this one even more changed. His skin had a scaled texture, eyes completely black, fingers ending in what looked like retractable claws. He whispered something to Chen in a language that hurt to hear, full of clicks and harmonics that shouldn't come from a human throat. My first officer reminds me that we haven't eaten in days, Chen said casually. The last creature we hunted put up quite a fight. Dimensional phase beast. Tricky things, but their organs make excellent fuel cells once you figure out how to stabilize the quantum fluctuations. The casual mention of hunting a dimensional phase beast, a creature that existed in multiple realities simultaneously, sent shockwaves through the bridge. Such entities were considered impossible to catch, let alone kill and harvest. Captain Chen, Krikstar said carefully, the Galactic Council would be very interested in your survival story. We could arrange. The Galactic Council. Chen's expression darkened. The same council that marked our colonies for protective isolation after our homeworld fell. The same one that redirected supply ships away from human settlements. That council. The temperature on the bridge seemed to drop. Krikstar's antennae flattened against her head, a defensive posture. There were concerns about human aggression. Your species' tendency toward violence. Violence. Chen laughed again, but this time there was no humor in it. You haven't seen violence. Violence is what that world taught us. Violence is watching your children adapt or die. Violence is becoming something else because remaining human means extinction. You want to know what we learned in that hell. We learned that the universe doesn't care about your rules. It only cares about who's strong enough to break them. The survivor's ship suddenly deployed what looked like weapons arrays, but the configuration was all wrong. The barrels seemed to pulse with life, and the energy signatures matched nothing in the Ingenuity database. Don't worry, Chen said, noticing their alarm. We're not going to attack. We're done running, done hiding, done being afraid. We survived the unsurvivable. We tamed the untamable. And now we're going home. Home. Earth is not Earth. The galaxy. Humans aren't extinct, Captain Krikstar. We're evolved. And it's time the universe remembered why they used to fear us before they tried to forget us. The communication cut off, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. The survivor's ship turned, its impossible engines lighting up with energies that shouldn't exist. As it departed, Krikstar noticed something that made her blood freeze. The ship's wake wasn't just disturbing space, it was changing it, leaving behind trace amounts of the same hostile environment they'd escaped. "Captain," Velnix whispered, "should we report this to the Council?" Krixtar watched the human ship disappear into quantum space, carrying its transformed crew back to a galaxy that thought them extinct. "Yes," she said quietly, "but I don't think they'll believe us. And even if they do, I'm not sure it will matter." Because the humans hadn't just survived KV-7. They'd conquered it, and now they were bringing a piece of that hell with them, carried in their blood, their bones, their very souls. The universe had rules, but humanity had just proved that rules were made to be broken. After all, when you've lived in hell and made it home, what's left to fear? The survivor's tale. 3 years earlier, the colony ship New Horizon dropped out of quantum space at the edge of the Craven Vortex. It was supposed to be a routine emergency stop, a brief pause to recalibrate navigation systems knocked offline by an unexpected cosmic storm. Nobody planned to get anywhere near the death world at the system's heart. The explosion happened in engineering first. Later, they'd discover it was sabotage, corporate rivals ensuring the colony mission failed. But in that moment, all that mattered was that the New Horizon was dying, pulled inexorably toward KV-7's gravity well. Sarah Chen was a xenobiologist then, studying in the observation lab when the alarm started screaming. She watched through reinforced viewports as the ship's antimatter containment failed, as escape pods launched in futile attempts to escape the planet's pull. Most burned up in the atmosphere, others were torn apart by gravitational shears. The lucky ones made it to the surface. Lucky. What a word to use. The New Horizon hit the planet's upper atmosphere like a meteor, shields failing under the assault of acids that shouldn't exist in nature. The ship broke apart in 3 massive sections. Sarah's section, containing the research labs and medical bays, crashed into what they'd later call the crystalline wastes, a desert of living glass that sang with predatory intent. Of the 12,000 colonists aboard the New Horizon, only 2,000 survived the crash. Within a week, that number was halved. The first night was when we learned the rules had changed. Sarah would later tell the Xenari. But that was the sanitized version. The truth was messier, bloodier, more human. Dr. Marcus Webb was the first to change. He'd been exposed to atmospheric toxins when his suit ruptured, and everyone expected him to die within hours. Instead, he went into convulsions that lasted 3 days. When he finally stopped seizing, his body had adapted. His lungs could process the toxic atmosphere. His skin had developed a resistance to the acid rain. His eyes could see in spectrums that hadn't existed in human vision before. "It's impossible," Chief Medical Officer Lin Zhao had muttered, running scan after scan. His DNA is rewriting itself in real time. The planet's toxins aren't killing him. They're being incorporated into his genome. But the changes came with a price. Webb's mind fractured along with his DNA. He could survive the atmosphere, but he couldn't remember his daughter's name. He could see in the dark, but he couldn't recognize human faces anymore. He was the first success and the first casualty of what KV-7 would do to them all. The second week brought the predators. They came from beneath the crystal sands, creatures of living silicon that moved through solid matter like sharks through water. The colonists' weapons were useless. Bullets shattered against crystalline hides. Energy weapons were absorbed and redirected. 30 people died in the first attack. It was Elena Vasquez, a mining engineer, who discovered their first real defense. In desperation, she grabbed a shard of the singing crystal and driven it into an attacker. The creature had screamed, a sound like breaking glass and dying stars, and fled. The crystal shard in Elena's hand pulsed with alien life, and she felt something shift inside her mind. Knowledge that wasn't hers. Understanding of an ecosystem so alien it shouldn't be comprehensible. The crystals aren't just minerals, she explained to the survivors. They're neural networks, living computers, and they want to survive just as much as we do. That was the beginning of the compromise, the deadly bargain. The colonists learned to communicate with the Crystal Collective, offering their unique human perspective in exchange for protection. The crystals would sing warnings of approaching predators. In return, the humans would help them spread to new territories, carrying seed crystals in their modified bodies. By the third month, integration had become survival. Those who resisted the changes died quickly. Those who embraced them lived, but at the cost of everything they'd once considered human. Sarah remembered the day she made her choice. A pack of phased beasts had cornered a group of children in the ruins of the ship's kindergarten. These creatures existed partially in other dimensions, making them nearly impossible to fight. Sarah had two options: watch the children die, or inject herself with the cocktail of adapted pathogens they'd been studying. The transformation was agony. Every cell in her body screamed as alien DNA rewrote her genetic code. Her bones dissolved and reformed. Her organs shifted and changed. Her brain developed new structures to process sensory input that humans weren't meant to perceive. But when the change was complete, she could see the phased beasts truly. Not just their physical forms, but their dimensional anchors. The weak points where they touched reality. She killed 3 of them with her bare hands, tearing through dimensional membranes like tissue paper. The children lived. Sarah Chen, the human, died. Something else took her place. The first year was about learning to survive. The second year was about learning to fight back. By the third year, they were learning to conquer. They built their first permanent settlement in the Screaming Cliffs, a mountain range where the wind created harmonics that drove most creatures mad. The humans modified their hearing, learned to interpret the mad song as data. The cliffs became their early warning system, singing of dangers days before they arrived. Food came from hunting, not with weapons, but with biological warfare. They learned to produce pheromones that could lure prey, toxins that could paralyze the massive armored herbivores that grazed on metallic plants. Every successful hunt made them stronger, as they integrated new biological systems from their prey. Thomas Riley, a former spacecraft engineer, discovered how to grow ships. The secret was in the bleeding trees of the Crimson Forest, organisms that were part plant, part animal, part something else entirely. Their sap could dissolve and rebuild matter at the molecular level. Fed with the right materials, guided by human engineering knowledge, they could grow technology that was alive. The first grown ship was small, barely larger than a shuttle, but it could heal from damage, adapt to threats, learn from experience. It bonded with its pilot, Rebecca Martinez, on a level that went beyond the physical. They shared thoughts, sensations, instincts. When Rebecca died fighting a volcanic serpent, the ship mourned. Then it chose a new pilot and passed on everything Rebecca had known. By the end of the second year, they had a fleet of 7 living ships. They'd established trade with 3 different predator species, exchanging hunting rights for protection. They'd learned to harvest the temporal storms that plagued the planet's equator, using the time distortions to accelerate their adaptation. The hive minds of the northern continents were the first to acknowledge humans as apex predators. These collective intelligences, each controlling billions of insect-like drones, had ruled their territories for millennia. But humans brought something new: individual creativity combined with collective adaptation. Where the hive minds were rigid in their ancient patterns, humans were chaos incarnate. They formed temporary alliances, broke them when convenient, adapted strategies faster than the hives could counter. The war with the hive minds lasted 3 months. By the end, 2 hives had been absorbed into human neural networks, their billion-year-old knowledge becoming part of humanity's new consciousness. The remaining hives signed treaties, recognizing human territory in exchange for peaceful coexistence. Captain Sarah Chen emerged as the leader not through military rank, but through depth of transformation. She had gone further than any other survivor, her original human DNA now making up less than 30% of her genome. She could survive in pure vacuum for hours, communicate with most of the planet's species through biochemical signals, and her enhanced nervous system could process information at speeds that made conventional computers seem slow. But the greatest change was psychological. The old human concepts of morality, ethics, civilization, they'd evolved too. What was murder when killing meant absorbing useful traits? What was cannibalism when consuming the dead honored their contribution to survival? What was humanity itself when the alternative was extinction? We didn't lose our humanity, Sarah would later explain to those who questioned their transformation. We expanded it. We took everything that made us human, our adaptability, our stubbornness, our refusal to accept defeat, and we pushed it further than anyone thought possible. We became more human than humans were ever meant to be. The third year brought the greatest challenge. The planet itself seemed to recognize them as a threat. Weather patterns shifted to target human settlements. New diseases emerged weekly. The very ground would sometimes liquefy beneath their feet, trying to swallow whole communities. But humans had learned the planet's language by then. They negotiated with the weather through atmospheric chemistry. They bargained with diseases, offering their bodies as laboratories in exchange for beneficial mutations. When the ground itself rebelled, they convinced it that humanity's spread would help it reach new evolutionary peaks. By the end of the third year, they weren't just surviving on KV-7. They were thriving. The planet hadn't tamed them. They'd formed a symbiotic relationship with hell itself. They were no longer human as the galaxy understood the term. They were something new, something forged in the crucible of the impossible. When the quantum sensors detected the Exenary ship at the system's edge, the survivors faced a choice. They could remain hidden, continue their evolution in isolation, or they could return to a galaxy that had abandoned them, carrying with them all the terrible wonders they'd learned. The vote was unanimous. It was time to remind the galaxy what humans were capable of. Time to show them that extinction was just another word for evolution. Time to bring a little bit of hell back to the civilized stars. The ship they'd grown for this purpose was their masterpiece. Part human engineering, part crystal consciousness, part hive mind biotechnology, part something entirely new. It could traverse dimensions, adapt to any environment, repair itself from near total destruction. It was less a vessel and more a living embodiment of what humanity had become. As they prepared to leave KV-7, Sarah stood on the crystalline plains where they'd first crashed. The morning suns, all three of them, painted the landscape in colors that had no names in human language. Acid rain fell like liquid jewels. In the distance, a pack of dimensional predators howled their hunting song. "We'll be back," she promised the world that had transformed them. Because KV-7 wasn't just a death world anymore. It was a forge, and humanity had been reborn in its fires. The survivors' engines came to life, singing with harmonics learned from the screaming cliffs. As the ship lifted into the toxic sky, its crew carried with them more than just their own transformation. They carried the seeds of change, the promise of evolution, the threat of adaptation. The galaxy thought humans were extinct. They were about to learn that extinction was just the beginning.